Welcome back, students. As you know that we are discussing this poem My Mother at 66. My Mother at 66. This is the poem. We talked about author, we talked about the devices and also certain things. Now we shall be discussing certain devices, the explanation of the devices in this lecture. Imagery, so I'll repeat the devices that the poet has used in this poem. Imagery has been used by the poet. Simile, personification, apostrophe, device of contrast, chromomorphism, repeated or repetition, enjambment, alliteration, and polysyndeton. These are the devices that the poet has used in this poem to bring home her point. The first device that the poet has used is she's used two types of imageries, visual and organic. By organic imagery, I would say organic imagery is basically related to the personal experiences, personal experiences of the character of the poet. These organic imagery can be related to emotions. Obviously, this poem is all about human bonding, so there are emotions of pain and helplessness are reflected in the poem. By visual imagery, we can visualize the poet driving from her parents' home to Cochin Airport. We can visualize her when the poetess describes, we can easily visualize when the poetess describes her mother's face. She describes her mother's ashen face, pale face of her mother. We can visualize the corpus when she compares her mother's face to the face of a corpus. We can visualize the trees and the children spilling out of their homes, trees sprinting, and also the late winter's moon. And we can also visualize the scene at the airport when the poet bids adieu to her mother. By organic imagery, obviously this poem reflects the fear and pain of the poet because when she notices her mother has grown old, she notices that she is going to lose her mother. So the poet's mind and heart is filled with emotions. What kind of emotions? She is filled with pain and fear. The pain is reflected when she realizes that her mother is going to die soon and she's going to lose her mother, and fear, she has this apprehension that she is going to lose her mother. So another device, this is imagery, visual imagery, corpus, pale face of a mother, late winter's moon, and trees and children. Simile is used in line 4 and line 11 of the poem. Simile is used, the poet has used two similes in the poem. The first simile is used in line 4. The line 4 reads as her face ashen like that of a corpus. Here the poet has used the word like to draw comparison between her mother's face and the face of a corpus. Corpus means dead body. When we look at the face of the dead body, we notice that the face of the dead body appears pale and colorless and weak. In the same way, when the poetess was driving, you remember when in the poem we'll see the poetess is driving from her parents' home to Cochin Airport, and suddenly she looks at her mother's face. What she notices certain things. She notices that her mother has grown old, her face is pale, it is wan, which means colorless, and weak, and it's all because of old age. So the poetess compares her mother's face to the face of a dead body. Why? Because the face of a dead body is pale, is colorless, and weak. Okay, so I would write the explanation of the simile is the poet compares her mother's face with that of a corpus. As the face of a corpus looks ashen and pale, her mother's face looks wan and pale. This is the explanation of the first simile. Now moving ahead, the explanation of the second simile, which is used by the poet Kamala Das in line 11, which reads as wan and pale as late winter's moon. This simile can be described in three ways. First, wan means colorless, pale, ashen, late winter's moon. If you have noticed, sometimes when we come out during winter, we look at the sky and we notice the light of a moon appears dull. That is because it is covered with clouds. Winter itself, if we describe, is the last season of the year. That is the last phase of the year. Similarly, her mother is old and she is in the last phase of her life. So this is how she compares her mother with the late winter's moon. Second thing, late winter's moon, has pale light as it is covered with clouds. In winter, the sky is almost every time covered with clouds. So when we look at the moon, its light appears pale. In the same way, when the poetess looks at her mother's face, she notices that her mother's face is pale and wan. This is how she draws the comparison between late winter's moon and her mother's face. She has compared late winter's moon with her mother's face by late winter's moon has pale light because it is covered with clouds in winter. Similarly, her mother's face appears to be pale and wan. It is because of her old age. Okay. Now the third way that we can compare, in late winter's moon gets thinner and finally disappears altogether. Late winter's moon gets thinner and disappears altogether. In the same way, the days of her mother, poet's mother, are numbered. She nears her death with each passing day. As the moon gets thinner and thinner, in the same way, the poet's mother nears her death with each passing day, and finally, as the moon disappears altogether, eventually the poet's mother is in the last phase of her life and eventually she is going to die. This is the explanation of the second simile. In the first simile, the poet's mother compares her mother's face. The poet compares her mother's face with that of a corpse. As the face of a corpse appears ashen and pale, in the same way, the face of her mother appears pale, colorless and weak. In line 11, the poet compares her mother with the late winter's moon. As the winter is the last phase of the year, in the same way, the poet's mother is also in the last phase of a year. Late winter's moon has pale light because it is covered with clouds. In the same way, poet's mother's face is pale and wan as because of old age. Late winter's moon gets thinner and disappears altogether. In the same way, poet's mother nears to her death with each passing day as the winter gets thinner and eventually when the moon disappears altogether, eventually her mother is going to die as she is in the last phase of her life. This is the explanation of these two similes. Now moving ahead, the next device that the poet has used is personification. The poet has used personification in line 6 of the poem, which reads as, when the poetess tries to divert her attention from the thought of losing her mother, she looks outside and she notices young trees sprinting. That is the line, young trees sprinting. Personification, is a rhetorical device where we bestow human qualities to inanimate. And here, this device is reflected with, this device is related to the trees when the trees are described as sprinting. By sprinting, I mean to say short race. Usually, when we are driving a car, when the car is flying on the road, it seems that the trees are running alongside the car. In the same way, the poetess imagines that the trees are those figures which are running alongside her car. Here, trees are given human qualities. They have been shown as they are running. So we can say the personification, the explanation of the personification is the poetess has transferred human qualities to the trees by by transferring the word sprinting, when the poet says that the trees are sprinting, young trees are sprinting, she means to say that the trees are, those figures which are running alongside her car. Poetess actually imagines the trees are those figures which are running alongside a car. This is the explanation of this device, personification. Personification is a rhetorical device wherein the poet bestows the human qualities to inanimate. This is used in line 6 of the poem, which reads as young trees sprinting and merry children spilling out of their homes. So here this personification is reflected with respect to the teachers, as they have been described as sprinting, which means short race. Here the poetess imagines trees are those figures which are running alongside her car. So this is the explanation of personification. Now moving ahead, the poet has used apostrophe. By apostrophe, we mean to say, we know that apostrophe is a rhetorical device wherein the poet or poetess addresses his or her absent audience. This apostrophe is used in the second last line of the poem, which reads, "See you soon, Amma." Here, the poetess speaks directly to her mother. But even though as she speaks directly to her mother is present, but still, we never see her mother replying to her. So that is why we can say that it is used, apostrophe is used. I would repeat it, rhetorical device is apostrophe is a rhetorical device which is wherein the poetess addresses his or her absent audience. This is used in the second last line, "See you soon, Amma." Although the poet addresses Amma, speaks directly to her mother, but still we never see her mother replying. So that is the explanation of the device apostrophe. Now we see the device of contrast. Device of contrast is used to show the difference between two things, two ideas, two situations. Okay, it is different from juxtaposition. And as in juxtaposition is a literary device, while as device of contrast is a rhetorical device. Okay, so this poem excels in contrasts, the differences. When the poet is driving the parents, driving the car, she's driving to Cochin Airport. Inside the car, when she looks at her mother sits beside her, and when she looks at her mother, she notices her mother is old. She's going to lose her mother, and her mother's face is pale, ashen, weak, colorless, like that of a corpse. So the poet is filled with sadness, with pain, with helplessness, with the thought of losing her mother. So to divert her attention, the poetess looks outside the window of a car. Inside the car sits the old mother. You note down this point. Old is adjective, old mother. But when she looks outside the window of a car, the outside world provides a stark contrast. How? You will notice inside the mother there is old mother. Inside the car there is old mother. Outside the car there are young. It's old, and then we have the word young, adjective young. Young trees sprinting. By sprinting, I said it means short race. So here the poet signifies liveliness, vigor, energy, strength. But inside the car, her mother is old. She lacks energy, vitality, vigor. Okay, merry children spilling out of their homes. Merry, the word merry. Inside the car, inside the car there is sadness, but outside the car there is happiness. So there is a stark contrast between the world inside the car and the world outside the car. The poet provides a good contrast of life and decay. Life outside the car, decay inside the car, happiness outside the car, sadness outside inside the car, continuity outside the car, stillness inside the car. So this is the device that is used, device of contrast. This poem excels in contrasts. Inside the car sits the old mother. The world outside provides a stark contrast. Young trees are shown as sprinting. Children are shown as they are happy, they are enjoying, and they are joyous. They are spilling out of their homes. Inside the car, the atmosphere is of decay. Inside the car, the environment is of sadness and stillness, but outside the car, there is life, there is happiness, there is connectivity. This is, I hope. Now, in the next lecture, we shall be discussing other devices. Okay, so I hope this will be helpful. If you have any queries, don't hesitate, just shoot out the queries. I'll be I'll be very happy to address your queries and questions and confusions. Allah Hafiz.